Hi, and welcome to another episode of Bespoke Architects Daily Pinup. I'm Nicole Walters, Director of Bespoke Architects, and I'm about to show you what inspiring architectural images made our Pinterest boards today. This little oasis cooking freestanding kitchen that I found this morning I really enjoyed. It does come in a combination of cooking and sinks and refrigeration and sinks. It was just really simple materials that I really enjoyed, really streamlined. It does have a lid there. I just thought that was a wonderful option as a prefab option for some alfresco areas, so that's why that has made the board today. I just really loved this internal courtyard and the way the tiles had been continued inside and outside. The sliding doors and fixed windows go floor to ceiling, so they're rebated into the ceiling and into the floor. So it's this feeling of openness into a small, it's quite a small courtyard, but the tree is lovely, and the way that it engages with the inside I found really beautiful. So that's why that one made the board today. This little concrete house, I really love their material palette. As we know, I am a big fan of concrete. So we can see the heavy use of it for ceilings and walls, and it carries through their kitchen joinery. That's also quite an interesting kitchen layout. It's a three bench version, where we've got our cooking island here in the middle, our cleaning bench at the back, our refrigeration over on that wall, and then our serving with the a drop-down concrete panel to the dining. So that was rather interesting. It's quite a big kitchen. And the way that that connects to the surrounding spaces was really nice. From the same house, I really enjoyed the floating heater that we can see here in a bit of a concrete box. There is a skylight above where we get to see the flue. So I found that really interesting from that project. We can see a similar theme here in the bedroom, where it feels like a floating joinery unit with the television on it facing the bed. So that's why that made the board. That will be on our joinery board if you're looking for it. And then the external of that, I'm really enjoying the way that we can see the split level and sort of the stairs through that facade. And here is an internal shot of that same stair, and we can see how it integrates with the window and then has the glass balustrade in the middle there. And then externally, the way they've done their cantilevered sort of semi-in-ground pool is really lovely. Of course, in Australia, that would require a pool fence, but nonetheless, the concept is beautiful. The next little house that caught my eye was a gallery of a house with 4 gardens. They did some really interesting things with joinery, and again with their joinery in their bathrooms. So this is a shower bath combination where the shower's over the bath. I think what really sells the image to me is the introduction of the greenery, but I do quite like the tiled hob where you step in. It is a great way to use a small space, is to have the shower over the bath. I have it at home. I have a very small bathroom, and I do like having a bath, so I do have the shower over the bath. And then there is another detail there of that vanity that we're catching sight on in that image is front on here. And I quite enjoy the fact that that's only a half height mirror. It's a round with a flat edge, and they've obviously got a vine going over it, and then that simple sort of vanity, which is the exposed pink steel frame and just the vanity basin. So it's a really simple bathroom that feels really quite big, given that we know that it's a small space. And then I really enjoyed, I actually saw this image first of their robe doors and how they've integrated the white panel onto the plywood, and then they've got the cutout finger pull. And then we see that they use that same detail again here on their bedroom door. So I really like that as just an interesting kind of door rather than just a straight white door or a straight timber door. Again, the way they've created this shelf with the cut block work is really interesting above that bed head. So we're looking at the head of the bed at that end. And again, we see it replicated in this image here. So that I found that interesting, and that's why that is on the board. This house, the same house, the house with 4 gardens, it has this really interesting internal sort of garden. We haven't seen that done since possibly the 1970s here in Australia. That was quite trendy. And then we can see the skylight above. So that just makes a really interesting space. It's kind of a room divider. It does add some greenery. Obviously, these people are very good with indoor plants. This would not be the condition of these plants if they were in my own house, but it really is interesting and inspiring, and hence why it's made the board today. This image here I just really liked. Obviously, it's Japanese inspired, or it's probably in Japan, I should say, but the Japanese inspired landscaping where you're doing the solid pavers in amongst the loose stones and these really well thought out garden beds. It's just a very inviting space, and particularly for a front entry, I liked that. So that's why that has made the board. And from that same house that we see that the landscaping carries through to this courtyard at the back. And I really just enjoyed that as a landscaping element. So that is on our landscaping board today. Looking down, the next one, this house here, the image that caught my eye was this one. These are shapes that I do like to use, the strong horizontal line breaking up the gable. I use it a lot in my projects. I pinned this one for that combination as well as the combination of material. So we see the more earthy stone on the lower level that's submerged into the hillside. And then we go up into this rusted iron look with this strong horizontal concrete element here. Here it is externally from the rear, and we can see that it actually includes an inbuilt sort of seating area with a fire pit, and then the sort of the free form furniture of the alfresco connected to that kitchen. I just found that a really beautiful image, as well as a really interesting and functional outdoor space. The kitchen, again, it's got the dining table integrated into that kitchen island bench, so it's just dropped ever so slightly, and even the color scheme of the chairs matching the color scheme of the island bench. And then the way they've replicated the built-in sort of joinery section behind that kitchen island bench, they've done the same behind the dining room, and they've included a wine rack. So that was really interesting, and that's why that's made the board. And again, you'll see they've got the more functional task lighting above that island bench there, and then they go into these pendant lights above the dining table, which are really interesting. So that is why that has made the board. I don't know how I managed to make myself disappear then. And then from that same house, just the way that the shower integrates with the vanity. So you would assumably walk in from the end that the image is taken from, and you can walk left and go into the shower, or you go to the right and you go to the vanity, and then there's that giant window at the end. It makes the space feel really, really big. So I quite enjoyed that as a shower, and we can see that that track lighting, which featured in the kitchen, is again replicated through the bathroom, and we see it here again in the living space. I did pin this one for an idea around a fireplace. I just really liked the simplicity of that fireplace with it's black, therefore integrating with the black cast iron box, but then it has these counterpoint sort of plywood boxes for general storage at either end. So that's why that has made the board today. This product here, which is the internal glass screens, they're the sort of the old school wire-filled glass. They're just really pretty. They're translucent. I like the way they're using the 5 doors in this image here to be a room divider, and here is a detail of those a closer up. And you can see you can either have them fully open or fully shut, or a combination of both. So it sort of allows that 2 spaces into one, but it does give you that sense of a divide at all times. The monochrome house, so dark, super dark. But I loved their pendant light above their, again, dining room table connected to the kitchen island bench. I just really enjoyed that lighting solution that they had from that property, and also their furniture. It's just really, that looks really comfortable. And again, it's working with their color palette, as dark as that is. So I love dark spaces. I actually did a black bathroom at my house, and I can tell you, I feel so calm when I walk into my bathroom. It's a very calming space. It's a very nurturing space. I also look terrifically thin in the mirror in that space, but it is absolutely useless for doing any sort of maintenance work. You can't see, there's not enough good lighting, and then the light, when you do turn it on, is sucked out again by the sort of the matte black finishes that I went for. So it is a word of caution. I do love it as a space. I don't know how I would go with it as a kitchen though, given my problem with the color in my bathroom. But it does look divine in these images. I pinned this image here just for some landscaping around paving. I just really liked their color palette. So we can see that there's a concrete slab. We can see that there's corten steel and a raised garden bed. There's a lower garden bed, and then there's a lacquer bluestone smaller paver with assumably some pebbles which are over a drainage system. I just found that a really nice combination, or a really nice palette of materials for landscaping. So that's why that one made the board. The House of G had some really interesting design features that I really enjoyed. Obviously, this is a box gutter, and then this is their version of a downpipe. I don't believe we can do chain downpipes in Australia anymore under the latest copy of the BCA. I could be wrong. I do really like it, but I do appreciate too that in a heavy downpour, that's not really going to contain the rain. It is going to splash around. So I can see why we can't have such beautiful detailing. As for function, that is. That's not to say you can't just go and hang these around your house. This is the front entry door. It's a detailed shot of the front entry, but I just really liked the way that batten timber just continues across. Obviously, the door ends at that spot there where the handle is. We can see the hinges on this side, and then we go into a fixed panel. But without that handle, you would never know that there was a door there, and that's why that image is on the board. Again, the shape of their steel balustrade for their internal staircase, I mean, it's just so simple in its elegance. That's why it's made the board, just how you turn the corner with the balustrade and then how you go down. You're using the contrasting plain black steel against the white plasterboard wall. It's just a beautiful handrail detail. You will find that on our stairs board. This is a bathroom, and you can see from the track in the ceiling that these timber screens actually slide across to act as a room divide between the bathroom and the ensuite, and we can see it's gone from parquetry flooring into more of a slatted timber floor. So it was just a really great combination of materials and a really interesting way to divide the ensuite from the master bedroom. That's not to say you couldn't do something like up here where we have the translucent glass screens as well. I think we saw a lot of interesting ways to divide rooms over the weekend coming through. So that was why that has made the board. And then from that same project, I really just enjoyed this tiny little roof garden space that's been created, and then their use of potted plants in that space. That's just a really lovely idea. From that same property, and we can see that handrail for the staircase in the distance in this image, it was just, you know, in the current COVID-19 situation, and people are working from home a lot more, and it's starting to understand what kind of spaces work the best for that kind of working environment. Particularly, I think it is very much age dependent on the children and the makeup of the household in terms of who needs access to what, and how do you create separate spaces for everyone that are separate from their sleeping spaces and are separate from the living spaces, because you don't necessarily want to integrate those two activities. So creating a built-in study space in a passage with good lighting behind it, I just thought, wow, that's a different way of doing it, something I hadn't really considered. I mean, I am a super neat person, as you can see behind me. Everyone has left, and that side of the office is pretty minimal, and it's tidy. So I don't know if I could live with that, with a computer terminal permanently at it, this bench here in this image. But it's an interesting use of space, and potentially a good use of space. And if there isn't that much heavy foot traffic going on behind you, it might actually be a really nice space to work. So that's why that's made the board. From that same house, no, it was a different house. I was thinking of something else then. This administrative industrial complex, I just really like the shapes that the materials had created in the facade. So we've got some corrugated iron, we've got some stonework here, and then we've got these concrete L shapes that are actually the box gutters for the sawtooth roof that come down into them. So it's a kind of, the rockwork almost looks like it's spraying out of that box gutter. It was a really nice combination of shapes, and that's why it's made the materials board today. This image here is just a screen in a retail complex, but it's a fabric screen that's weighted and drops from the ceiling, so it can retract up and then drop down. So that was kind of interesting, creating spaces within spaces. I did one last week where we used a really heavy fabric floor to ceiling drape that pushed to the side. In this instance, it's more like a drop down scenario with just a little walkway through it. So I found that really interesting as a solution. And as to their joinery, so it looks to be all suspended from above on rope and timber. Again, this is obviously a clothing store. It was just, I really enjoyed that and thought, wouldn't that make a wonderful walk-in robe? So that's why that is on the board under joinery and storage. Again, this little bath here, something totally different. We don't often sort of see a stainless steel solid bath like this. I'm not entirely sure why they've recessed it into the floor, whether it was to get plumbing through. I don't know why they didn't sit it up on the floor. But nonetheless, it's a different alternative option to a bathtub and one worth pinning to inspire people. This is that same industrial complex, administrative complex that was up in this image. And again, just the form of the roof really caught my eye. And then the way that the driveway leads down to the front door and how you integrate a slope and how you reference that with the roof. So that is why that made the board today. The House of 108, this is obviously their mudroom, so that's something that we're seeing more and more requests for, where each person has like a locker space where they can put all their equipment, all their school books and stuff as they're coming in and out of the home. So this is usually the space that connects the garage to the house, if you're lucky enough to have that. So I just thought that was a really nice solution for some, you know, solid cupboards over here, whether that's a drying cupboard, and then there's a workbench sort of there if you needed to fold anything, and then obviously every person's storage from that is opposite. So I thought that was really nice. It too did a study nook, but again, this one is sort of in the general living area, and I think if you've got children in a COVID lockdown scenario, perhaps finding yourself parked there in a busy sort of space within the house isn't ideal. I honestly think that post-COVID, we're going to see a big resurgence of the home office as a separate space. It'll be interesting to see if that's what happens, but that's just my gut feel, particularly if you've got smaller, younger children and you're conducting these sort of Zoom meetings and you really can't afford to have people, you know, living their lives directly behind you. But it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. And from that same project, I really liked their kitchen. So it's got like created a window seat at the end of the kitchen island bench, which is really nice. I really like how they've got this recipe book sort of storage facing the dining room, which is supporting the really wide island bench. We can see it here. So that's just a really nice storage space. So if you're sitting at that dining room table and you're not looking out to the view, which is on this side of the table, you can in fact see the recipe books there and be all inspired. And then again, their staircase was a little different. It's kind of in a double space void. We've got this mezzanine connecting to it, and it's all that sort of white wire mesh. But then the fact that they've chosen a curve is really lovely, I think, to turn that sort of corner there. And then you can see here the feature barn door in that what is very on trend pink at the moment. So that was just a really lovely image, and that's why that's made the board. As has this alfresco space of theirs. It's kind of very private. It looks to have a louvered roof and then batten screens, and I'm assuming it in this image, which is the front of the property, it's that one up there. But I really just like that as a space, the way it connects back into the double height void, and it's got the feature pendant light, which is possibly here over the entry. But here, I just really liked this. This has got a fabric retractable shade cloth over this alfresco space, and then we can see their pool. So that was just a really interesting sort of combination of external and internal spaces. So that's why that made the board. And then I'll finish with a Banksy artwork. I saw this on a newsletter, and just how magical is this? His artwork is rats running riot through this bathroom, and his placement of the toothpaste and the toilet paper, the mirror, the rat urinating on the toilet. It's just a great creativity in an otherwise quite what could be quite a depressing time for some people, and I think that is a great creative use of time. So that is why that has made the board today. That is everything that's made our board for this Monday. If you haven't caught it, Bespoke Architects Daily Pinup episode 2 is currently being reviewed on Pinterest and will be accessible shortly. And we are available on YouTube. This is where this video gets posted. Some of them go to Instagram, some of them go to Pinterest, but we are restricted by size and length on those platforms. So if you do like the content, please follow us or subscribe to us on YouTube. That's where you will find all the wonderful and exciting things that we see every day. Thank you so much for joining us on another episode of Bespoke Architects Daily Pinup. I look forward to talking to you tomorrow. Until then, take care. Bye.